Alright, a little bit of Mountain Blade Warband today. Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Late Night. Not Late Night Paranormal this time, excuse me, I get so used to saying that. With Bannerlord right around the corner, I wanted to take a look at its predecessor, Warband. Mountain Blade Warband was released in 2009, and despite the fact that this game is nearly 11 years old, it's still the only game out there that does what it does. This might sound a little odd, but Warband reminds me of The Sims in many ways. Not because of the similarity in gameplay, but because they are both games that are the only kind of their breed. Sure, there might be pretenders that try and copy what they do, but they never quite hit the mark. Games like this are very special to me because of this. Said simply, Warband is the only game I have ever seen that makes me feel like I'm part of a medieval battlefield. While many games try to capture the feeling of a medieval battlefield, they either simply don't have enough NPCs on screen to make the battle convincing, or they focus too much on the spectacle and don't give enough control to the player. Something about the way Warband is designed makes the battles feel very organic. What's even more unique about this is that it manages to accomplish this while simultaneously providing an extremely open-ended sandbox with nearly endless replayability. Oh, and did I mention that the game also has an almost endless amount of mods for you to explore at your leisure. I would not hesitate to say that this game is the best sandbox RPG I have ever played, although I'm not sure if it's even correct to call it an RPG. It's more of a strategy RPG, city builder, medieval war simulator, if that makes any sense. Despite being such a weird combination of different concepts, it still manages to pull it off and make for an extremely engaging game. The game essentially just lets you loose onto a war-torn medieval country, and it's completely up to you what you want to do from that point. When you first play this game, it's not uncommon to feel like you're a baby that has just been dropped off in the woods. But the more you play, the more you'll get the hang of it, and the more you get the hang of it, the more things you can accomplish. This works to create an amazing positive feedback loop. Trust me, if you play this game, you will be hooked. And the first time that you successfully raid a village as a bandit, or crush an enemy lord's army under the hooves of your cavalry, are moments that will stick with you for a while. You can even become a king yourself and challenge the other claimants for a shot at the crown. I wouldn't recommend doing this too early, however, as if you do, every kingdom will gang up on you and your kingdom will probably not last very long. It's better to become a noble and do some work for the other kings first before you strike out and try to claim castles and cities for yourself. Going back to something that I mentioned earlier, I really like that Warband doesn't try to force you down a linear narrative. It's 100% a true sandbox, and I love that the world doesn't revolve around your character. If you want, you could just sit back in a city or pursue life as a humble trader and watch as the different factions dynamically compete for control of Calradia's various cities. And each time this happens, it will be completely different to the last time that you played. On to the graphics. I'm not going to lie to you, the graphics in this game are freaking awful. The graphics were awful when the game first came out in 2009, and they're even worse by today's standards. It can be genuinely jarring to go from playing a game like Kingdom Come Deliverance to this. So if you're the type of person that puts a lot of emphasis on graphical fidelity, then this game may be difficult for you to appreciate. But for those of you who are hardcore RPG players, and you don't care about the graphics, you just care whether or not the gameplay is engaging or not, this game will not disappoint. And a silver lining to the terrible graphics is that it means that even a laptop can run this game. And if you're interested, there are plenty of mods that try to improve the graphics. But, that being said, I almost prefer the default graphics. The game reminds me of Oblivion in a lot of ways, especially in that the awful graphics and hilariously potato-faced character models almost add to the character of the game. Anyways, back to the gameplay. As I said earlier, you start as a nobody plopped into the middle of a war-torn region. I recommend starting as a peasant as it makes the game extra immersive. Pitchfork in hand with your fellow drunken serfs, you will show the world to fear the kind of rippling physique that can only be attained by a steady diet of stale bread and cheap wine. You will imprison the bandits of the land and sell them to your nearest slave trader, a common and respectable profession in war-torn Calradia. By now, you should have gained a lust for more coin, so you will set out to capture ever stronger prisoners to sell for fat stacks of cash. Eventually, you'll become strong enough to capture Viking warlords, and it is at this point that you may want to pledge your fealty to one of Calradia's various kings. If the king says he doesn't want you, go out and fight more blood-soaked peasants and Vikings until the sight of your bloodthirsty psychopath of a character is too terrifying for the king to ever dare refuse your request for more coin. He will give you a village to call your own. Your instinct may be telling you to knock your serfs out and sell them to the nearest slave trader, but stay your hand. These peasants will make a fine addition to your collection. Oh yes, by forcing these serfs to spend their short miserable lives hopelessly scraping in the dirt to grow subpar grain, you can make far more coin than you ever could by selling their unconscious bodies on the black market. Another piece of advice, you might be tempted to raise their rent in order to attain more coin. Don't do this, not because we care about the peasants' happiness, but because starving serfs that can't afford to feed themselves don't work as hard and thus aren't as profitable. Now that you have fat stacks and a castle paid for in the blood of unwashed serfs, it's time to go out there and woo some fine young ladies. Oh God! Alright, maybe they're actually not so fine. But you should still marry these butter-faced women, as getting married is very important if you want to make a play at taking Colorado for yourself, and it's not their fault that they were born in a time without makeup. Unsurprisingly, these women are not terribly interested in marrying an unwashed barbarian who doesn't even know how to read. Blood-soaked poetry in hand, go up to your lady of choice and watch in dismay as she laughs at you for trying to read poetry. Time for plan B. Wait for the king to declare a feast and use your superhuman powers of leading enemies into walls to crush your opponents in the tourney. Go up to your lady of choice and dedicate your winnings to her, and bing bang boom, you're in. Just ignore her when she yells at you with big words like genocidal and psychopaths. It's the 13th century, and she can't leave you anyways. Alright, now you're ready to be a king. First, you need allies. So make sure that you have friends that support your business management philosophies. Primarily raiding villages and taking prisoners for that sweet, sweet coin. The companions that are okay with raiding are Elion, Artemenor, Beheshter, Borcha, Lizelet, Matheld, Ferentist, and Rolf. This group of young entrepreneurs will be your bread and butter for helping you in your eternal quest for ale, butter, and more coin. Ignore the fact that these upstanding citizens have somewhat checkered pasts. Just because someone is a slaver, a bandit, or somebody imitating nobility for personal gain, doesn't mean that they're not good at making coin. In fact, they're some of the best. Alright, now you're ready to become king. Declare your independence, and just keep doing what makes you great. Namely, raiding, pillaging, and putting the enemy's serfs to the sword. And before you know it, bing bang boom, you will have a city to call your own. But now is not the time to relax. Buckle up. You've got a long road ahead of you if you want to call Caradia your own. Mountain Blade. Yeah, it's a hell of an experience.